critical to highlight. Number one is strategy. So what are our goals for our campaigns? What do we want to return from this? What are we looking to get? What's our KPI? What's going to give us the indicator for success? Number two, leveraging our audience. So we have an audience. We have to make sure we use what we know about that audience in the right way to deliver relevant messaging to our customers. So you may have a group of people, and if you only know one thing about them, you should use that. If you know their first name, you should use their first name. Segment them based on what you know. Then apply creative best practices. So it's not just sending them a one-size-fits-all message. How do I make sure the message is relevant to them? What do I know, and how can I use that to make sure that they're going to engage with me? Then I have deployment and delivery. So how do I contact them? When do I contact them? What's the cadence? All of that's relevant. When is it going to be oversaturated? When are they going to hit statistical significance? All of these factors. And then we look at historical engagement and performance. So if I don't look at how my campaigns are performing, then how do I move forward? How do I get a strategy to move forward if I don't use what I know? And that's one of the things that I think customers really miss out on in marketing agencies, because there's so much to learn and so much to learn from other industries. We need to make sure we're applying that to our own campaigns as well. So this is kind of a playbook, if you will, and you'll notice the little icons. You might see those on some of the slides moving forward, and that just kind of gives you a clue of where you are in the process and where you can relate back to within the overall idea. So strategies are critical. We have to think of it in little baby steps, right? So if we're a baby, we learn to crawl, then we walk, then we run, and then I like to call this section the ninja. So I'm an email marketing ninja if I get to this point. So let's talk about crawl. Well, what would that be? Okay, it doesn't mean that you're a baby. It just means that this is early in your process, or maybe that's all you have the finances to do. You can just live in that phase because that's where your budget is. Or maybe that you don't know enough about your customers yet, so we have to start out there. That would be considered a one-to-all message. So if I have one thing to tell to my entire customer database, what am I going to tell them that is relevant to them? It's not, it's a siloed channel, so I'm not thinking about what am I telling them in email, what am I telling them on Facebook, what am I telling them in other digital ads. I'm thinking about one channel, I have tunnel vision for that channel and that campaign. So we see a lot of companies in that phase just simply because they don't have the equipment that they need to move forward quite yet. So that's a great place to start. We want to make sure that it's very product focused. We're in this big funnel of engagement, so we want to make sure that the relevant messaging it's relevant to the entire audience, right? Then we move to rules-based. So that's one-to-many. We're getting a little better. We're walking at this point. We get some analytical insight. We look at behavioral data. We maybe have several channels that we're using, and we're trying to communicate the same message broadly across those channels. I have some rules based on analytics. So if I have the behavioral data, say I know these customers told me they want this email. Okay, so that's number one. I can put them in this little bucket over here. Well, what if I have customers that I know have bought a car in the last 12 months? If I'm marketing cars, I put them in this bucket. Well, do I know if they're male or female and how I'm talking to them? So I start thinking about all that different segmentation, and I make sure that it's relevant across the board, but I can kind of do some A/B testing. If it's, I can do personalized messaging versus not. So that's also critical. If I do know first name, well, I say, Lauren, dear Lauren. Well, how do I A/B test that? Then when I'm talking to John, I just say, dear valued customer. So making sure that I can test something relevant or at least a variable pair that makes the most sense, that's where I start getting a little bit smarter, a little bit more rules-based. So I can maybe do some simple automation like a welcome email or a happy birthday, anything that I know about them. I start talking to them because I know that they're going to be interested, and I watch for that engagement. Model-based is probably the most common for people who are really into digital marketing. So it's a one-to-some message The content, it does vary. I have multiple messages in my back pocket that I can talk to you about as you engage, you get further into your customer journey. I can start speaking to you about that. I look at my audience, I look at their action. So say I've emailed them a welcome email and they engaged. Then I have the next step. So I'm going to talk to them about my product, or I'm going to invite them to an event, whatever it might be. I look at them in the cycle and I think about how I can use what I know about them even further, and I start testing across media. So maybe I'm doing some Facebook ads, or maybe I'm doing some digital ads, whatever it might be. And I look at it collectively because I try to think of my customer, where they've been spoken to, where they've been marketed, and how they responded, and I look for trends. So here I am, and now I'm a ninja. And I have one-to-one personal content. I have optimized content that fits across multiple channels. I'm predicting their needs. I'm looking at this person and their likelihood. So I'm looking at more propensity data. I have my behavioral data. I have what I know about them, what they've done when I've spoken to them. So now I look at, well, who else fits into their similarities? Who else is like them? How do I make sure that I'm matching what I know about them against what I think I know? And how can I test their responses? I have lots of automation. So I'm making sure from the production side that I'm efficient. So I've got something that I have a canned response for a certain behavior. So if they open, they automatically get this, and they go into this cycle of automation. I have dynamic content. So I have a template, and I have the header that says Merkle, and then I have a block over here that's an image, and I have a block over here of content. So I'm a male and I've bought a car yesterday. I get something relevant to me, and I can populate those different sections of the email to be more relevant to the customer, to get them to the next step. So where am I in the funnel? Where am I going to need to be to get to that next step? So I think marketing as a whole there's just so much. So I have to take a step back and say, what's my strategy? Where do I want to be? Where am I here? And I don't need to beat myself up about it either. Like, I want to be a ninja, but really I'm still crawling. That's okay. You have to start somewhere and take baby steps, and then you get there. So I would just say, ask yourself, where are you in this today? And then look at what some of the characteristics and tactics are within each of those, and think about how you can get to that next level and what it would take and what success you would need. So the funnel is huge. I talk to customers about this all the time because it's really hard for them to understand, why can't I just have a one-size-fits-all message? Why can't I just send them one thing broadly? It's cheap. I can just have one creative agency develop some content for me. I can send it out to them over and over and over. Why is that not going to work? Well, because you have to remember, what do you know about your customer? So if I'm in the upper funnel, that's got to be a message that broadly applies to everyone. That might be just advertising your brand. What do you offer? Who are you? Just getting people aware of what you have to offer to them. So I might be looking for new support programs. It's just very basic. Again, back to the previous slide would be like the one-to-many. So as I know a little bit more about my customers, I start educating about the product. So how can they use my product or service? How can they find benefits from it? So I know that they're a little more interested. Maybe they opened my email. Maybe they asked for more emails. They updated their preferences. I know they're getting a little bit closer to that conversion, so I need to start speaking to them in that manner. Because we're all customers in this room. Every single person is a customer. So think of it in your own mindset. You start learning about a product or something that you're interested in. Well, in order to get to that conversion point, you need to have more information, right? So how do we get a little bit further? Well, we start talking to them as such. So we might be looking for that conversion, and we might have multiple messages here that we're using to get that win. But ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, is the content that I'm marketing relevant to that person at this point? If they're close to that conversion, how am I going to get them to the conversion? So then we're in the conversion phase. We know about the brand. We know what it has to offer. We know how it would benefit us. So we're so close. We just need to get that purchase, or we need to get them to ask for our services. Whatever your conversion might be, we got to speak to them in that manner now. So we've got to make sure it's as easy as possible to get there. An example would be I go back into the open funnel. So I like to shop at J. Crew, so I'll just use that. I see some outfits that I really like, or I see a blazer that I think is really great. I know about J. Crew. I've visited their website multiple times. I probably have purchased there. They have some data on me. So then I start getting messages about like that specific jacket. Hey, here's that jacket. Here's some more stuff that you might like that are similar to that jacket. This is a whole outfit that you might like to purchase. And then I start thinking, okay, I'm going to add that to my cart. And I just abandon my cart. I'm like, not today. I'm not going to buy it today. Well, I get a message later that says, remember what you left in your cart? This will look really nice with this, this, and this. And oh, by the way, we have a sale, whatever it might be. I'm getting lower and lower into that conversion, and I buy. So they successfully got me. So how do we think about that? In any sort of marketing message, you have to make sure, where am I in the funnel? How do I want to get to the win? What is a win? How do I know what a win is? And then I evaluate and I use the historical data. And next time I use that behavioral data. Whatever I have, the more I market, the more I'm going to have in my repository to speak to these people in the future. So the funnel is a good visual. I feel like most people understand it. So I would encourage you to think about that when you're looking for your conversion as well. And then one more thing about that, KPIs. So clients all the time are like, I want all of my metrics to be great. Okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like, do you want to get to the inbox? Do you want people to open? Do you want them to click? Do you want them to come to your store? Do you want them to buy online? What's a win? So you have to think about that as well, and it can't be everything. So if we're up in the upper funnel driving awareness, then we want them to keep opening or engaging with our mail or our marketing message so that we know we're getting closer to the conversion, to the close. So think about what's a win, where am I, and then how do I get to the next phase? So we talked about our strategy, how we get started. We talked about where we might be in the awareness funnel, where our customers might be. So now we have to talk about our target audience. This goes back to, we have to know what we know about our customers. We have to make sure we're using what we know and moving that forward. So this is a pretty good visual for a lot of people as well, because it identifies different groups, and you might think, I don't know anything about my people. Well, I don't think I can do anything because I don't know anything about them. Likely you do. So you look at, who do you know are prospects? Who out of your complete audience would fit into a certain type of target that you want to reach? Okay, then I have leads. So somebody raised their hand and said they want to hear from you. So let's make sure we're segmenting those people out. And then I have my actual customers who are loyal. So I have to remember how I speak to them. So again, I go back and I'm a J. Crew customer and I've bought before. If I get an email from them telling me all about their store and all about like what they're doing, I'm probably not going to engage because I already know that. So they need to speak to me as if they know that, right? If you don't have the content, use the subject line. Just speak to me with my first name, or speak to me in a manner that identifies me as a customer. If I'm a prospect, use the subject line to tailor it that way. In the pharma industry, we're heavily regulated by the FDA, and it's not fun, right? You can't do a lot of things because there's such a leading time. I mean, we might have 70 days from the time we originate an idea till it gets into market, and once it's in market, there's no shoulda, coulda, woulda. I've got to make sure I am documenting what I need and going back and planning efficiently. One thing we can do is tailor our subject lines. So we might not know anything about our customers except that they are experiencing some type of symptom that's relevant to my drug. So I need to speak to them that way. And it's cost effective just to modify small little things. If it's the subject line, if it's the first line of copy in the body, whatever it is, I have to make sure that I'm doing that so that I can speak to them, again, where they are in the funnel, how do I get to the next step? How do I get to that conversion? So make sure you understand who your prospects are, who your leads are, who your customers are, and you speak to them in that manner. And you'll get more refined as you start growing your audience. So the more you market, the more you're going to know, the more people you're going to get, and the more you can do for your company to analyze who you're speaking to. And then segmentation is also critical. So if you think about this, you should really start from the conversion back and put yourself in those people's shoes. Think about why they converted. So if they bought my product, why did they do that? What did I talk to them about in their journey that led up to that conversion of that purchase? So then I keep going back and back and back. So EM1 through EM6, you're probably thinking, what in the world is that? So I'm documenting the number of emails that I've spoken to them with and what the content was. Then I go back into the segment part and I say, if I segmented it all, where do they fit? Are they a customer? Are they a prospect? Or were they a part of an A/B test? And then I document them in this little journey. And then I take a step back and I look at my overall audience pool. And eventually they're going to funnel right back into where they originated. But I need to make sure I'm documenting along the way what happened, what got them there. And then I can use that in our conversion goals for the future. So I know where I am in my strategy. I go back to the funnel. I can go even back to the crawl, walk, run phase and where I was as a company in my marketing. So this is just a critical way to analyze your performance and to understand what took that customer through that journey to get there and to convert, or whatever your goal was in the beginning, thinking back along the way, what did you speak to them about to get them there? KPIs, we talked about that earlier. A lot of times customers don't even know what their KPI is, and I say customers as in marketing companies that work for Merkle, but how do I know what my goal is? Well, if you think about in the funnel and messaging, when we go back there, let's focus on the indicators of the business. So if I'm raising brand awareness, I'm telling people about my brand or my company, then what's my key performance indicator that I was successful in that area? All right, well, typically it's opening because they're going to be able to see it. So I look and I put those people in the bucket of unique open rates. So out of the people that I sent to that got that message, they got that delivered, how many of them opened? All right, so that's my key performance indicator if I'm in the upper funnel. As I move into the engagement phase, maybe I want them to click through and watch a video. Maybe I want them to click through and browse my website or watch a webinar, come to an event. So here I am in the engagement funnel and I'm looking at the click rate. So of the people who got the messages, who clicked? So they're a little bit more engaged. That's my KPI if I'm in that part of the funnel. If I'm getting down into the conversion rate, I'm probably going to look at what I know, whether it's purchase data, if it was writing a prescription, if they attended an event, that's a conversion. So we go back to strategy. Where were we in our phase? We look at our audience. What are we doing in the funnel? Where have they engaged before? What do we know about them? Okay, now we've gone into our segmentation, and then we look back here and we're saying, all right, this is what took them here to convert. So having multiple KPIs just muddies the waters. It's really hard to identify, well, what do I attribute that conversion to? Was it because they were opening? Was it because they've engaged or because they bought? So it's really, I want to call it like a product life cycle within the customer journey. Just making sure you're attributing whatever behavior you're seeing to the right area will help you evaluate it and learn from your marketing tactics and be able to be agile in the future. The dial is my favorite thing about messaging because I think it really gives a good illustration of what you can do with specific audiences. So I can't have the cake and eat it too. I can't have a one-size-fits-all message for the rest of my email marketing career. Okay, so back to the funnel. When I'm talking to people who are I'm raising brand awareness, what is my goal? What's my key performance indicator here? Well, in the upper funnel, if I look at the dial and I turn it this way, then I'm driving engagement and I'm giving them a compelling brand category or content. But if I turn the dial a little bit, then I'm talking to somebody who already knows about my product. So how do I refine my message as I get to the lower funnel of that conversion? So just think about this as you look into your marketing capabilities. You're not going to break the dial. As you turn it, something's going to be across from it, but you can't break it. So just make sure that your messages are relevant to what you know about your customers. So email programs are designed to drive conversion, but what your conversion is dependent to your business. So just make sure that you're looking into this. you're thinking about this. It's very logical if you take a step back at 30,000 feet, and then you can look down at the granularity of your marketing messages, and then you can identify, okay, here's where I am and here's where I need to be, and I need to refine it just a little bit to get there. Does anybody have any questions about the funnel or anything so far? Okay. So mobile first mentality. A lot of times I get questions from clients, well, how many of my customers are viewing on mobile? Or how big is mobile? How do I know if is it really important for me to have 2 different versions? Okay, raise your hand if you check your email on your phone. Raise your hand if you check your email on your desktop. Raise your hand if you check your email on your desktop at work only. So you're a customer. Sometimes you need relevant messages at work, but the reality is I need to be able to capture your attention if you have 2 seconds to look through your email on your phone. What's going to make you open it? Well, if you can't read the subject line whenever I deliver it to you, I've lost you. Because I need to make sure I've got my quick wins front loaded. Those first few words, our attention span is so short, like 3 to 5 seconds. I would say more like 3. I've lost you. So I have to make sure that I'm thinking about my messages in that manner. If you can believe it, mobile adaptation, we're looking at faster than in the 2000s when we first saw the web come through. This is insane. I mean, people are constantly using mobile devices. I don't know how many people actually have personal desktops. I don't. It's not something common. If my laptop is aging out, I'm not going to go buy a new one. I'm probably just going to go buy an iPad or something relevant like a tablet to me. So 51% of consumers open emails on a personal device. In pharma, 65% open it up on a mobile device. Can you imagine? Like, I have to make sure if that physician, I'm talking to them, if they're looking at their tablet just for a second, I have to make sure that I'm speaking to them and that it's relevant to that device that they're using. If it's a poor rendering experience, I can't see any images, gone. I'm done. I've wasted my money. So we tell customers mobile first. Think about how your message looks on mobile first. Chances are it's going to be okay on a desktop. But if you can only do one thing, design your messages to look nice on a mobile phone. And this is insane and ridiculous and embarrassing also. 150 times you're checking your phone throughout a day. Like, that is just the reality of the world that we live in. And it's sad because there are so many other things we can consume our time with. But if you want to win and you want to get a conversion, you've got to design with mobile first. And I lied earlier when I said that the funnel was my favorite thing. This is my favorite thing. Process is my thing. I can talk about email marketing, and that's fine, but I cannot tell you enough that process is critical. Quality is critical. A poor user experience, you probably lost a customer, and it's really tough to win them back. Process is my thing. How do I think about, on the back end production side, what am I doing? I'm not just getting a marketing message out the door. If I've got 6 people that work for me and they're all trying to help me with my marketing production side, what if they're all 6 of them are like getting the same product, they're executing a campaign, but they're all doing it a different way? Oh my gosh, quality control. All 6 of them are doing it in a different way, and it might be working, but what happens when they make a mistake? It looks horrible on my whole business. So I take a step back and say, wait a minute. I have all these phases of my production. How do I group the different tasks into different buckets? And what's critical in each of those buckets? So in the kickoff, what I think is critical there is evaluating what you have. Because if you get downstream and realize you didn't have something that was a key piece to the puzzle, you're going to have in-market delays. You have to take a step back, and you might have to do some double work, and that's costly. So do I have what I need? Are the specs right? Like, if I have all these images that I want to put into my email marketing message, they're not all going to fit into the templates that I have. So how do I make sure that I say to my designer, this is the template that's going to work well on mobile, this is the image that's going to work well on mobile? How do I make sure that I'm telling them up front, this is the size that I need, thank you, now we'll be able to move forward. In the production phase, QC is so important. So even the smallest issue is going to cause a poor customer experience. So make a checklist. When you're going through your campaigns or your person is executing your campaigns, ask them what they're doing. Well, what do you do first? Well, how did you make sure that that was right? How did you make sure that there were no spelling errors? How did you make sure that the content was relevant or it was actually what it was supposed to be? Well, you go through a checklist. First I set up the campaign, then I did this, then I reviewed it. Then I had my peer review it because my eyes have been on it for 3 weeks now, and I'm probably not going to see these small little differences. So I'm looking at the proofing phase. I have a checklist through that. If I'm checking it, what am I checking? If I have to partner with another company, when I send it to them, hey, does this ad look okay? Oh, sure, it looks okay. Well, I need to ask them, what do you mean it looks okay? What did you look for? What's okay to you? So is it that the images look fine? The subject line makes sense? Is my logo in the right spot? Whatever it might be. Then I have my final prep, and I make sure all my parties are signing off on what I'm marketing. Deployment is also critical. So what time do I want to send this message? Who is it going to? Am I going back and I send it at 9 a.m.? Am I going back at 9:05 to make sure it went out? Or am I waiting till 3 days later and realizing, oh my gosh, there was a platform glitch and it didn't mail, and now we're in emergency red status? But all of these pieces are critical. And I know in my bio we mentioned that pharma process, I shaved off 33% of my clients' production times in the last year. That comes from repeatable process. It's not because we did something and we're all techie and we made sure that it was dynamically populated from this database or table. It's because we made sure we were doing the right checks at the right part of the campaign phase so that we didn't get to the deployment phase and realize, whoops, we did this wrong, we've got to start over. So thinking about optimization, constantly having your brain open to what's efficient, what's effective. Did that work? If I did it this way, would it save me 30 minutes? If I give the person who's going to look at this a heads up, hey, I'm going to send you this proof on Thursday at 9 a.m., maybe they'll clear their calendar and then they'll respond to me by 10 a.m. instead of Friday afternoon. I'm like, hey, have you reviewed that proof yet? Where are we with this? So all of this, all of the email marketing stuff is relevant, but production is also critical, and I think that it's a key piece that's left off. Urgency means that sometimes people do abbreviated QCs, and the reality is that's not going to work. There's going to be an error, and it's going to be detrimental to your entire program. So if you don't think about the back-end production, you're missing out on a huge piece of the puzzle. And with that, that's all I have about email marketing, data, and process. And I would love to have any questions. Sure.
So you're wearing a badge, which means you're
Yes.
not a startup, right? You guys are an international company.
Yes.
Just a guess.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about the story of Merkle? How did you guys get started and what you do?
Sure. So Merkle is a part of the Dentsu Aegis network. So we started, our home office is in Columbia, Maryland. We started really small. Our Little Rock office started with maybe 5 to 10 people. We have over 100 now. So we were acquired by the Dentsu Aegis network, which is a global company that has lots of companies that work within it. And the great thing about that is we have lots of different partners that we can refer clients to, and they can refer clients to us. So Merkle got started as a small startup. It was, marketing database, grew into a much larger production phase, went into email marketing, started that. So it's been a long time coming. It's been around for a very long time, 30 plus years, but it started with a small base, and it grew and grew and started with acquisitions, and people realized that Merkle had something to offer. We acquired cognitive data, and that's where we got more lean with our data. We acquired some email marketing capabilities, and that's where we got more agile with our marketing and what we could offer our clients. Anybody else?
What's your typical kind of duration of email marketing?
So it's really different by industry. In retail, you could, if you've got, photos of your products, you could get a marketing message out in 8 hours. If you have your database, you have your product ready to market, and you have your designers in place, you could see it in hours. Pharma, months. It all just depends on what equipment you have. So if you have all the information you need to market and you just need to put the cohesive idea together, you could do 10 business days. But the reality of the production is short, but the planning and strategy is long, and it can be years. I mean, because you don't want to talk to your customers until you're ready to, because if you start off on the wrong foot, it's so hard to recover from that. So it's just dependent on what industry you're in and what equipment you have. Sure.
So I'm wondering if, in all the news about Facebook, that there's been, people are starting to talk about something that I think we all experience as consumers, but just thought it was sort of the way things are now. What you described about having your cart presented back to you, like, oh, you never bought that. But even, being on one platform and finding out that they know about what you saw on another platform. And I'm wondering if you ever, I'm wondering if you're seeing any pushback now. I'm actually hearing Congress talk about these things and as if there might be something wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I think that most of us are kind of used to it and that we live in this new world, and I don't know if it's generational or if it's, if there might be sort of a need to respond to how different consumers behave and how they want to be known.
Right.
So how do you respond to that when you're basically being very confrontational? I've been watching what you do, what you've been doing. I have this data about you, so here, buy. So how do you respond to all of that?
It's creepy, right? So I can say something near my iPhone and I get a message on Facebook about that product and you're like, what is happening with the world? But if you think about it, we're so innovative across the board. I mean, medical technology is an advancement. My daughter had open heart surgery and they fixed her heart, which would have been in 8 hours, which 10 years ago, they probably would have told me, go spend time with her and this is it. So I try to think about it in the bigger picture like that because it's all about getting you to that next level as a customer or satisfying you. So if I know that about you and I know you're interested, I should speak to you in that manner. And I gave you that information. So you have to remember what you're doing. That activity is being tracked, and if you don't want it to be tracked, you probably shouldn't do that. And it's all to better service you. So if you don't like that, don't go put it in your cart. Don't go browse the website. I'm going to act on that because my business goal is to talk to you with a relevant message and get you to convert. So you have to think about it in that manner, but you also have to be protective of yourself. You shouldn't be giving out your information to just any Tom Joe on the website. I mean, that's a security risk to you. And so if you save your card information, you should expect that the next time you come to purchase, it's still there. But I was talking to Chris about this earlier. Security is critical, and at Merkle, that's something that we're very aware of as well. So for your customer database, you should also keep that in mind. Don't be emailing your customer target files. We have to make sure that data is encrypted. You have to make sure that you're storing it in a secure manner because you don't want that to get leaked about your company either, because the first time you have a data leak, everybody's talking about it. They might not know any of the details, but you're the bad guy. So being protective of your people and also being protective of yourself as a consumer and putting yourself in those shoes is critical.
But so as a marketer, you're giving your customer the benefit of expecting that they're sophisticated with their own data.
Yes.
And just treating them that way. Let them do if something bothers them, let them go figure out what they've done to
Yes.
put their data somewhere they didn't want it to be.
Right. I would give
them
them
sophisticated and just move on.
Yes.
It's so useful.
And honor their requests. Make sure you have there are laws regulated to email marketing, but make sure you have a clear unsubscribe, because if they don't want your mail, you want to give them the opportunity to get out quick. You don't want them to click spam, because then that's bad on you and the future, and I could just open a huge can of worms on that. But give them the opportunity to tell you how that they want to be spoken to. If they don't want those abandoned cart emails, then make sure that you have a preference center that says, I want to learn only about the newest product. I don't want anything else. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but try to put yourself in their shoes and don't be too creepy, but be protective. Sure.
What are some of the platforms that are out there like MailChimp,
So platforms are tricky, and that is a question that we get asked all the time. Merkle is platform agnostic, but we also use some of the same platforms a lot because they're the best to offer the right services for our customer. So I would say, MailChimp is great, small businesses. It depends on where you are with your larger scale, but I think you have to ask yourself, what's my goal? Do I want to deliver messages that have dynamic content, and then if they go visit my website and click on that same jacket that I marketed them to, how do I want to match those together? Do I want to do some web scraping? So it depends on how sophisticated you want to be in your marketing. But you start small, and I think I would advise you to go to the different platforms that are available and say, here's what I'm looking for. What's your capability? And don't let them sell you something that's not useful to your business. Make sure you have the right questions to ask up front. Don't let them ask you a lot of questions. They're going to have to ask you questions to know, but do your homework before you go to them to make sure that they have the capabilities for what your marketing goals are. If you're in the crawl phase, you can do a smaller platform that maybe is relatively inexpensive. But as you get to the ninja phase, you're going to have to pay for that. And don't let that shy you away either, because cost means most of the time means more capability, and don't get into something that's not going to fit your business needs long term either. Sure.
What's your thoughts on proximity marketing?
What is it?
Proximity marketing.
Proximity marketing, like geographical. Yeah. We get asked that a lot, so it's great, and it's a way to deliver relevant messaging. You have to make sure you have really strict rules around it, though, because I can be from Arkansas, but I live in New York, so I have to make sure I know enough about my customer that the message is still relevant to them. And I think a lot of times we use third-party tools to do that type of thing if we don't know enough about them. So Movable Ink is a good one because they have the capabilities to pull in the weather or what might be relevant to that geographic location at that time. And I can match my customer database and what I know about them with their capabilities, and then they can make it look pretty for me, right? So a lot of times I would say we rely on third parties to make things more advanced. Yes. Sure.
A lot of these people, I would imagine a lot of people here represented come from young startup companies. So any advice in terms of building that initial customer list or prospect list? So you're just starting out. How do you get that first batch of email addresses that you can begin marketing to?
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways to do it. You can buy the data. Merkle houses databases if you want to do that. But I encourage organic growth. Give them the opportunity to sign up wherever it is. Get them to give you their email address and get that opt-in. So if it's at an event and it's just a simple sign up where they write it down, fine. But organic growth is critical because the people who give you their information are likely the ones who want to be spoken to. You can partner and do co-registration. It's a little messy sometimes, but you just have to make sure you have your end goals in mind and your strategy. We have, in pharma, a lot of the lists are purchased because a physician is not going to go and tell you their email address. They're just not going to do it. So when I have that data, I have to make sure I'm being clean with it. So I want to clean it up. If I'm marketing to them several times and they don't respond, bye. They go in a bucket over here. I don't necessarily throw them away, but I only bring them in when I really have a broad upper funnel awareness campaign I want to speak to them about, and even then I'm really careful. So organic growth is critical. Give them as many opportunities as you can. If it's on Facebook, if it's on your website, if it's literally writing it down on a piece of paper, just make sure they have the time to do it. Sure.
How do you quantify your results? For instance, after the campaign is done and everything, the strategic campaign is done and everything, how do you quantify the results of the campaign?
So that kind of goes back to what type of campaign was it? So if I'm quantifying my results, I have to make sure I have a big enough audience to do that too, right? And I have to make sure I'm using what I know about them. But say you sent them an email marketing message and they opened. If that was your goal and you're in that upper funnel, you want to drive awareness, and that's how you understand the success of it. So it goes back to looking at what phase you're in and then applying that knowledge there. But then it also goes back to the strategy, and you have to make sure you know what you wanted in the beginning to be able to measure it at the end. So I can't go back and look at all the different phases to say, well, maybe it was this or maybe it was that or maybe this was successful. I have to make sure I'm planning and saying, I want them to know about my product, so that means I want them to open my email. Then I can go back and measure how many opened my email. Why did they do that? Did I email them 3 times? What's oversaturation? Did it take 7 messages for them to get to that conversion that I wanted? Just kind of looking at the data in all different manners, but then translating it back to all of your strategy and your goals.